When it comes to time cards, employees usually make two kinds of mistakes. They forget to clock in and/or they forget to clock out. The first part of fixing these mistakes is to simply find out who, what, and when. That's where ShopClock Status Panel comes in. The Status Panel is open by clicking on either padlock and entering the password. The three buttons on the Status Panel indicate the current number of time off requests, clock out errors, and call lights. To find out the who part, click on one of the buttons. Employees with that kind of issue on their time card will be highlighted in yellow. When the padlock is open, the time card is in edit mode. In this mode, the time card can be opened without the employee's password. Time in and time out values can be changed. Sessions can be added and deleted. Employees can attach a note to any time card session. If they turn the call light for that note on, the note is highlighted in yellow and the number of call lights on the status panel is incremented by 1. Let's see why Bob Driver turned on his call light. Okay, it looks like Bob turned on the call light because he forgot to clock in when he started work. To fix this mistake, let's turn off the call light and save the note. Notice with the call light turned off, the note is no longer highlighted, and the number of call lights currently on is decreased by 1. To edit Bob's time in, just click anywhere in the cell and then use the left and right arrow keys to move to the value you want to change and make the edit. To save the edit, just click in the uneditable area of the time card. Notice that the cell is now displayed in red to indicate that the time card has been edited.
Let's examine another situation. Remember when Betty Worker last clocked out, an auto lunch session was added to her day because she hadn't taken a lunch break? Let's say she really did take about a 20-minute lunch break. She just forgot to clock out for it. In order to get this fixed, she needs to write a note explaining what happened, turn on the call light to get the administrator's attention, and then save it. Later, the administrator checks the status panel and discovers that someone has turned on a call light. By clicking on the call light button, he discovers that it's Betty Worker that has an issue with her time card. By opening her time card and clicking on the highlighted note, the administrator can discover that she, in fact, took a lunch that day. To fix this issue, we need to insert an at-lunch session into the middle of Betty's work session and then delete the negative lunch break session that was automatically added to her day when she forgot to clock out for lunch. Let's begin by turning off the call light and saving the note. Then, right-click on the hours column of the session to be edited. When the pop-up menu appears, verify that we are in fact editing the lunch session that we want to. Change the length to the desired length, 20 minutes in this case. When you tab off that, ShopClock comes up with what would be the middle of the session, but we can edit that because she said she took her lunch at 3 o'clock, so we'll change that to 3 o'clock. Finally, click OK. Next, we want to delete that negative lunch break session, so we click on the row selector, that's the little button to the left of each row, then press the delete key on the keyboard and confirm our intention to delete. That completes the edit. ShopClock has 3 options for handling missed clockouts when they happen at the end of the day or shift. We'll use Sally's time card to show how these options work. Option 1 is to do nothing. Simply clock her out the next time she punches the clock, no matter how long she's been clocked in. As soon as Sally sees her time card, she realizes that she forgot to clock out on the 13th. So she immediately clocks out, puts her time card away, brings her time card back up again, and then clocks back in. Then she writes a note explaining what happened to the administrator. She forgot to clock out when she left, turns on the call light to get his attention, and saves the note. Then puts her time card away and goes back to work. Later, the administrator checks the status panel and realizes that there's a call light on. Clicking on the call light button reveals who has the issue. Clicking on Sally's name opens up the time card. He looks at the note, realizes that she forgot to clock out on that day, and makes the edit. He's going to turn off the call light, saves the note. She left at 3:45 p.m., so we're going to take and edit this line right here so that on 2/13 at 3:45 p.m. she left. The second option automatically clocks the employee out at some particular time, perhaps when the business closes. This time, when Sally clocks in, the open session is automatically closed. The timeout is colored blue to indicate that it is an auto clock-out event. The clock-out error is added to the status panel to alert the administrator, and the employee is clocked back in. Later, the administrator checks the status panel and notices a clock-out error. Clicking on the button reveals that Sally has an issue. Opening the time card reveals the clock-out errors, which are shown in blue text. Since Sally didn't leave a note, the administrator will have to ask her what time she actually quit on the 13th. The timeout can then be edited accordingly. Once edited, the text is changed to red to indicate that an edit has been made and the number of clock-out errors is reduced by 1. Under the third option, the employee is first asked whether or not they forgot to clock out yesterday. If the answer is no, there is no missed clock-out issue and the employee is simply clocked out. If the answer is yes, the missed clock-out issue is dealt with. Now, when Sally punches the clock after not clocking out on the same day she clocked in, she is asked if she forgot to clock out yesterday. She can answer yes, I forgot to clock out, or no, and I want to clock out now. If she answers no, then Shop Clock clocks her out as usual without starting a new session and no clock-out error has occurred. Let's roll this back and try it again, only this time we'll answer the question, yes, I forgot to clock out. This time, Sally is clocked out at the same time she clocked in. It's colored blue to indicate a clock-out error, and Sally is asked when she meant to clock out. The answer is saved in an admin note, and Sally is clocked in and can return to work. Later, when the administrator checks the status panel, discovers that someone has a clock-out error. Clicking on the button reveals that it's Sally. Clicking on Sally's name reveals that there's a clock-out error on the 23rd. You can also see that a note's been attached to it. The note tells us what time the employee says they meant to clock out. If that's acceptable, all the administrator has to do is click on this button, put it in, and finish editing the note. The first option relies largely on the employees to flag missed clockouts by volunteering some information in a note and then turning on the call light to get the administrator's attention. The second option can be very convenient in some circumstances, but doesn't allow for employees that work past midnight, and it leaves it up to the administrator to run down any information needed to actually fix the mistake. The third option is the most comprehensive, and it collects the missing data in a format that's very easy for the administrator to use.